Hello everyone and welcome to this step-by-step tutorial on how to fill the ERAS application for residency match applicants. We will go through each section of the ERAS application and explain how to fill that, and we'll also discuss the changes that happened to ERAS for Match 2025. Make sure to stick until the end of this video because I will be sharing with you a full ERAS application template that has multiple examples of experiences, impactful experiences, publications, and all the other aspects of the ERAS application. And you can download that fully for free. And this template is part of the Match Guy all-in-one application resources that have personal statement examples, tips on how to write personal statements, letters of recommendation, MSPE, and much more. And you can get all these fully for free, so make sure to stay until the end of this video and I will share with you how to get these resources. And before we get started, if you're interested in having a physician advisor guide you through the match process from your personal statement, ERAS application, advising on the process, interview preparation, make sure to check out the match application packages offered by the Match Guy. So if you go to thematchguy.com under services, you can check the match application packages. Also, if you just want to get ERAS application editing or personal statement editing by themselves, you can go ahead and check that out on the Match Guy website. And you can also schedule a free strategy call with our customer support team who can guide you through the different services that the Match Guy offers. Now, to start filling the ERAS application, you have to buy the ERAS token if you are an IMG from the eSafeMG website, and then you can get access to your ERAS dashboard. In this video, we'll cover ERAS application, and in other videos, we'll cover the documents and applying to programs. Let's start with the personal information. Click here. If you filled something, it shows saved. If you did not fill anything, it shows incomplete. So just click here. On the left side, you will find the main sections and subsections, and we'll start with the account information. So click on Edit Account Information. You'll need to fill your first name, your last name. The asterisk means that this is required. If you have a middle name, you can fill that. For the email, make sure you put a functional email that you have very frequent access to, because this is going to be the email that you will be contacted at. You can put your gender, you have man, woman, another gender identity, decline to answer, and then you can put your birth date and click Save. And then you can click on I authorize the release of my birth date provided in my ERAS 2 programs. What they're telling you here is that if your other documents have your birth date, even if you don't release it here, your other documents will show your birth date if they have it. Now let's go to the basic information. You can put a previous last name if you had one, your preferred name if you have one, your preferred phone number. That's also very important. Program directors might contact you at your phone number, so make sure you have access to the phone number that you give here. And then you can select your pronouns if you wanted. Now let's move on to the address. Put your current mailing address, including the address, country, state, city, and postal code. Make sure that this is an address you can get mails to, in case the program sent you stuff by mail. And if your permanent address, which is the address you live at, is the same as your current mailing address, you can click yes. If no, it will ask you to fill your permanent address, because as I said, some people might be in India or Pakistan, but they're receiving mail in the US, so they would have a mailing address that is different than their permanent address. Now let's go to work authorization. Are you currently authorized to work in the US? If you click yes, it will ask you what is your current work authorization, and you have a long list of options. If you currently reside in the United States or Canada, please select where, and you will pick the state here. If you pick no, which is the case in most international graduates, it asks you if you will need visa sponsorship in the form of J1 or H1B to start your residency. If you pick yes, it will ask you what kind of visa do you need sponsorship for, H1, J1, or both. If you're an IMG, I recommend you pick both options, and then later on, once you get many interviews, hopefully you can decide if you want to rank only H1B programs. If you answer no, it will ask you which of these do you have to cover your work authorization in the US for the entirety of your GME training or residency, and you can pick the option that applies for you. Then it will ask you for the match information if you are planning to participate in the NRMP match. And what some people don't know is that the ERAS process, which is submitting your application to programs, is separate from the NRMP match, which is matching applicants with programs. So there are some specialties that do not participate in the NRMP match, and that's why they're asking you here if you're planning to participate in the NRMP match. And for most applicants, the answer to this question is yes. Just for you to know, it's fine if you keep this box empty. You can still submit your ERAS application with the NRMP ID empty. Why? Because you get your NRMP ID when you sign up for the NRMP match, and the registration for that opens usually mid-September, and you can sign up here by this link. So you can still submit your ERAS application without this, even if you're participating, because you can add it later on. And it tells you here, if you currently don't have your NRMP ID, please enter it as soon as you receive it. It's not required to certify and submit, and can be added once you have received your NRMP ID. And then it asks you if you're participating in a couple match. So if you're applying to the match with someone else as a couple, you can click yes and put your partner's name and the specialty of your partner. If not, just click no. If you're participating in the urology match, you can put your AUA member number. Then you need to put your USMLE/ECFMG ID, which is the number you will find on your USMLE transcript. So if you go to your USMLE Step 1 or USMLE Step 2 CK, you'll find the USMLE ID there. And then save your personal information. Now let's go to the biographic information. And the first question is self-identification. And some might wonder, do I need to answer this information? Will my answer hurt my chances? My opinion is I don't think it will hurt your chances. It actually might help your chances, especially if you're from underrepresented minorities, and programs sometimes look to increase the representation of underrepresented minorities, and they might seek applicants from these backgrounds. And if you notice in the self-identification section compared to last year, they added more options for self-identification. And it's interesting here, they have, if you reside in the European Union, do not answer this question. So the options here are American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Hispanic, Middle Eastern or North African, Native Hawaiian, white, or some other race or ethnicity, and you can type what that is. But again, you don't have to answer this question. It's not required, but if you want to, you can do. Now let's go on to language proficiency. This is another section that got changed this year. Last year you used to add each language and pick the language proficiency level. Now they added a question where it says, do you meet or exceed the advanced level of proficiency in English? And why do they have that question? Because you're going to be training in the US and English is the language, and they want you to be at least in the advanced level. Because in the good level here, you can see I have some difficulty communicating healthcare concepts, and you don't want residents who have difficulty with that. So if you meet the advanced or native/near native level, you click yes. And if you'd like to add additional languages, click on add entry. Click here on the drop down list and pick the language that applies to you. And here they won't ask you anymore for the proficiency level. So if I pick Arabic, for example, and I click save, that's it. It doesn't ask me for which level, which used to be the case in last year ERAS. Now moving on to military information. 2 questions about that. Are you committed to fulfill a US military service? And do you have any other service obligations? And if any of these apply to you, click yes and answer the questions afterwards. If not, click no. And by the way, if you need a physician advisor who's experienced with ERAS applications, personal statements, interview preparation, and you need help with that, make sure to check out our match application packages, which has a bundle of the different things that you need for the match: the personal statement, ERAS CV, interview prep, advising, and many other things that would be very helpful for your match application. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check the match application packages we offer on the Match Guy website. And if you have any questions about any of these services, what do they include, or if you want to buy each one separately, go ahead and schedule a free consultation with our customer support team, who can help guide you on what services would be best fit for you for your match application. And now let's go on to another important section of the ERAS application, which is Geographic Preferences. And this section used to be part of what was called initially the Supplemental ERAS application. And then the Supplemental ERAS application was taken out, and this section from the Supplemental ERAS got into the main ERAS application. As you can see here, there are multiple divisions, and each division has multiple states. And you can click on View Map to see how the divisions and states are divided, but you can just read here and see which states are included in each division. You're allowed to select up to 3 divisions. So any of these, you can select up to 3. Or you can select I do not have a division preference. Now let's talk a little bit about which one should you pick, or what do I recommend. To help you make this decision, you need to understand who will see your responses. There are 3 main scenarios. The first scenario, if you picked I do not have a division preference, all the programs you apply to, regardless of their location, will see that you picked I do not have a division preference. The second scenario, if you don't pick any of these, so you didn't pick a division and you didn't pick I don't have a division preference, so on their side they would see that you did not pick their division, but they don't know that you didn't pick the other divisions either. So that's why, in my opinion, you should not go for the second scenario, because you're not picking a division, so you're losing the advantage of that division, and you're not picking I don't have a division preference, so these places think that you picked someone else, while in reality you didn't pick anything. So if you truly don't want to pick any of these, you can pick I don't have a division preference, because at least now programs know that this is what you picked and you didn't pick other divisions. Now the third scenario is picking 1 or 2 or 3 divisions. And in this case, these divisions only would know about your preference. So let's say I picked New England, Middle Atlantic, and East, North, Central. Let's say I picked these 3 divisions. So these 3 divisions will be notified that I picked them. But the other divisions will not know that I picked New England, Middle Atlantic, or East, North, Central. They will just know that I didn't pick them because it doesn't show that they were picked. But they won't know what other divisions I picked. Now, based on data from the AAMC, many programs preferred applicants that picked their divisions. Even some programs filtered applicants by the selection of their division. So some programs, let's say in Massachusetts, only invited applicants who picked the New England as a division preference. Because as you know, there are thousands of applicants and programs need some type of filter. And this is a filter that programs consider as a way to identify people who are really interested in coming to this area. So now if you ask me about my recommendation is based on the data, which says that programs are likely to invite someone who picked their division more than someone who don't pick their division. So now my recommendation, which is based on data, the data published by the AAMC, I would recommend picking the 3 divisions that you are most interested in, or has the programs that you have the highest chance of matching at, or a realistic chance of matching at. I think this is a great opportunity for you to get advantage in at least the places you want to apply to. And I will leave the data that are published by the AAMC in the description of this video, so you can have a look and make an informed decision based on the data that you read and your interpretation of this data and your individual situation. Another thing that you should consider when picking the divisions is the number of programs and the acceptance rate of applicants like you. So let's say you're an IMG, and based on the ESFMG data, New York, Pennsylvania, and Michigan has the highest number of J1 sponsored IMGs. So to look at it from a statistical standpoint, there is a lot of programs and a lot of IMGs accepted in New York, so you might consider picking this box, for example, definitely if you're interested in going to New York. And you have to understand that sometimes small decisions like this on which box to pick might make a big difference in your chances of matching, because if you pick a place that only invites people who pick that division, now you're increasing your chances of matching in that place significantly, but also you have to pick a realistic place based on your application. And that's actually one of the sections that our ERAS application editors discuss with you when they edit your ERAS application, because our service doesn't only depend on changing language for your ERAS application. That's why we have a physician editor, not just a language editor, because you need advice on these things, on which geographic area based on my application, based on which programs I'm applying to, the program signaling, which experiences I should pick, and which we'll talk about soon. But you can see that the ERAS application is not just improving language. It's a lot of decision making that will be individualized based on your case. And that's why we have physician advisors who are very good in editing your application, but also have very good experience helping you make these decisions to hopefully get you matched into residency. One thing, when you pick on the division, it will ask you why do you have interest in that division, and you have up to 300 characters. 300 characters, not 300 words. And I highly recommend you answer this question of why are you interested in this area. Family ties are always good reason to stay in a place, but there is a plethora of reasons why you should be in a particular area. And we have examples of that in the ERAS application template that I told you about, and you can download it by clicking on the link in the description below, and you will receive multiple examples and samples of personal statements, MSPEs, ERAS, and multiple other things. Now let's go to the setting preference. You have rural, suburban, urban, and then a combo of each. and then no preference. So what does each one mean? If you hover here over this question mark, you can see that urban is central part of a city with high population, rural is large amounts of undeveloped land, and suburban is somewhere in between, smaller urban area. So you have to pick your setting preference based on what type of programs are you looking to train at, and of course your individual background. And then you can explain the setting preference or the lack of preference based on your situation and what kind of programs you want to match at. Then you can add your hometown/towns. You may enter up to 3 hometowns, and this is mainly places you currently or previously lived at and feel strong ties to or sense of belonging. You pick the country, state, city, and the setting of the hometown. Now let's move on to education. The first section is higher education, and this is mainly undergrad or grad school. And they have a line here, since most non-US educational systems don't follow the US model where you go to college and then medical school, almost all students and graduates of international medical schools will indicate none. In the rare cases where this question applies, please click on add entry. So they're saying if you're someone who went directly out of high school to medical school directly and you're coming to the US now, you're likely to pick none. But if you're a US student who likely went into college and then went into medical school, you can enter your college degree here. But another thing you can enter here is actually your master's. If you did a master's degree between medical school and applying to residency or before medical school, this is something you can enter here. So let's click on add entry. You can click on the country you got this at, education type, undergrad, grad, or other. Let's pick grad. Field of study, you can pick any field or you can just type it. So let's say I want to type medicine. And then degree earned or expected, yes. And then you can pick the degree. Let's say I want to pick Masters of Public Management, or you can pick Masters of Public Health. I'm sure that is an option here. And here it is, you can pick Masters of Public Health. You can put the date of the degree, date of attendance, from and to. Click save. Then you need to enter your medical education information, which is where you went to medical school. And if you went to multiple medical schools, which is a rare scenario, but some people have that, you can click on add entry. So enter the country of your medical school. Let's pick, for example, Afghanistan, which institution. So you try to find which medical school you went into in that specific country. And then the degree expected or earned. The answer is yes, because you can't apply without a degree. What degree is it? You have to check with your particular school. And I'll put a link below that you can check the different degrees that come from different schools. But most schools either issue an MD or an MBBS. So if you scroll down, for example, to find the MD degree, you can find it here, Doctor of Medicine. I want to answer the dates of education first before we jump to the degree date. You enter from the month you started medical school, the first month of your medical school, until your final exam in medical school. So these are the dates of your education. However, the degree date is slightly different because some schools issue the degrees, a month or two after. Sometimes it might take 4 or 5 months to get your degree. So the degree month here is the date on your medical diploma, on your degree, which might be most instances later than your end of your medical education. Then you have postgraduate training. One mistake I commonly find in ERAS applications of different applicants is they put residencies they did in their home country under this section. And this section is specifically for these type of residencies/fellowships. So AOAs, internship, residency, fellowship, or ACGME residency, or these type of fellowships. So if you did residency in your home country and they don't belong to these, put your residency as an experience, as we'll talk later. And to see the different options here, click add entry, and you can see the different types of trainings under this specific section. Then you have extensions and interruptions. This is a very important question, and I said that last year because many students mistakenly answer this question. If they, took a week off because they were sick, they put interruptions of medical education, and sometimes this answer might hurt your chances of matching if the person reviewing your application didn't read the details of why your medical education was interrupted. So they actually changed this year, and now it says, have you had an unplanned professionalism or academic issues in your medical education or training that caused interruption or extension? So they took out the health, disability, or family status issues from your interruption. So if you had a family issue like death or disability issue or health problem, being sick, that caused you to take a few months or a few weeks off medical school, that will not be considered interruption under this section. So have you had interruptions? You answer yes, only if these interruptions were as a result of professionalism issues or academic issues. If you pick no, you go to the next question. If you click yes, you need to explain the reason, the time frame it occurred, and what steps you took to address it and what you learned from it. Now let's go to another important section, which is the honors and awards. And that section used to be under the personal information, I believe, last year, but now they put it under education, and I think that makes way more sense. So you can see now they have a drop-down list for the Alpha Omega Alpha status, and they also have a drop-down list for the Gold Humanism Honor Society status. Most IMGs don't have these at their school, so you can pick no AOA chapter at my school, but if you're a US student, you're very familiar with what that means and which one you should pick based on your situation. Then you have other honors and awards, which I also like this section here because it used to be two places where you can put some awards and then other awards. I think unifying it under one section is better, and you can click add entry, select the award type so you can pick what kind of award you have. Is it research, scholarship, grant, academic excellence, community service recognition? Let's say, for example, research. You can pick the name of honor or award, the date it was received, and the description. Because also before, it used to have one box where you can put all your honors and awards. And I always tell people you need to explain what this award was given for. Because some people might not know what this name of somebody's award is. So they need context, and it's very important to tell people. For example, I was giving this award because I was ranked first in my medical school out of 400 students. So now people have an understanding of what this award means. And we have multiple examples of that in our ERAS application template, and you can get access to that by signing up to the Match Guy all-in-one application resources, and you can get the link for that in the description below. Here they're asking about professional membership. Please add any current memberships in professional organizations, associations, or societies. So let's click on add entry, and here you type the organization name. Let's say you're a member of the American Heart Association or the American Medical Association, so you type the organization name here. And it doesn't hurt to put the dates that you've been part of this organization. Now let's move on to experiences. If I have to pick a section that is the most important of your ERAS application, is the experiences section. You're allowed to submit up to 10 experiences, and of these 10, you can pick 3 to be your most meaningful experiences. And this is the section that applicants need most help with to make sure they pick the best 10 experiences they have out of so many things they have done, and pick the 3 most meaningful experiences that resonate with what program directors are looking for. And this is the section that our ERAS physician advisors spend almost 90% of the time when editing your ERAS application on the experiences section. So before we start with the different experiences, if you're interested in one-on-one help with your ERAS application, not just editing, but more of a comprehensive service of advising and helping you select the experiences and the editing process associated with that, go ahead and check out the ERAS application service offered by the Match Guy, and I will leave the link for that in the description below. And now let's click on add entry to see the different options of experiences that we have. Here you write the name of the organization in which the experience took place. Then you can pick the experience type. So let's have a look at the different options available here. Education training. Under this category, you can put electives you have done, sub-Is, observerships, residency in your home country if you completed residency outside the US. All these fall under the education/training. Next is military service, doesn't need much explanation. Other extracurricular activities/clubs. And if you look at last year ERAS, there was another word here, which is hobby. But they took that out this year, and I assume the reason is they wanted you to put real meaningful experiences here rather than just a hobby. So if you have a sport that you're very professional at, you're part of a maybe national team, or it's a big thing and you really want it to be part of your experiences, it would be considered as extracurricular. But if you just play maybe one time a week and it's just a hobby, it's better to put it under the hobbies and interests. Professional organizations, so you participating as part of a professional organization on a local, national, or international level, But here you don't have to be just a member, because if you're just a member, it's not a real meaningful experience. But if you, let's say, are part of the American Heart Association, you run their educational program or medical student section, or you run their social media, so you have really an active role in that organization, that would definitely qualify as an experience. But if you're just a member and you pay a fee or something, I would not recommend including that as an experience, because remember, you only have 10 experiences, a max of 10 experiences. So if you put an experience that is not that meaningful, you're taking from the space of an experience that might be more meaningful. Research is a very important, experience, and you'll see when we discuss publications and abstracts and presentations that there is a whole section for that. And that's another mistake I see applicants make. They put in the description of their research, and we'll see what I mean by the description of the experience, they list all the publications and the presentations they had, and there is a whole section for that. So there is no point of mentioning your publications or presentations twice. But what you can include here is your research experience. So the experience is slightly different than the publication. So let's say you did basic science research or clinical research, and you got multiple publications out of that, you got multiple presentations out of that. You can still include research as an experience, and you list the publications and presentations separately. But what would you put under research in this case? You would talk about the overall experience. What kind of skills you learned? What did you benefit from this experience, rather than listing the publications and the presentations. And that's what I will show you in the template that you can sign up for and get it to your email. You will see different ways of describing the research experience. Teaching, mentoring, if you tutored students, if you mentored students, if you were a teacher, all these fall under the teaching/mentoring. Volunteering/service/advocacy include unpaid experiences. And if you had that, you should definitely include that in your CV. Work include paid experiences. So if you run a business, or you're working in a business or a community, entrepreneurial work, all would fall under work. And some applicants don't think that they should include these things in their CV. And I would highly recommend you should, especially if you have space. Because remember, program directors are looking for applicants who have multiple skills, not just study, have high step scores and apply to residency. So if you worked in a tech company for like 3 years, that might be very appealing to program directors. If you had, a financial experience by working in Wall Street for like a year or two, that is definitely something you should include on your CV. So work is another, category that you should include if you have that type of experience. Let's say I pick research. Organization, I did research at Mayo Clinic, MD Anderson, so I can type that here. Position title, my title was Research Fellow. And here you can pick, I'm currently working in this role, if you are currently at that position. And in this case, it removes the end date as a required field. So you can just fill the start date, and then you can put the country, state, city, postal code where this activity took place. Then you have the participation frequency. You have one time, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And I'll put in the description of what each of these means, what kind of frequency is that. The setting, we talked about that already in the setting preference, but if you need a description again, you can hover over this question mark and you will see the explanation. Now let's talk about the primary focus and key characteristics. That is another section that many applicants that we edit the ERAS application for, they just ignore, they don't fill it. Because as you can see, it's not a required box, you don't see the **X next to it. So you can skip it, but I highly recommend you fill that. Because first, you don't lose anything, and second, you can kind of hint of what this experience has taught you or the focus of that experience was. And you can see a drop-down list of multiple options. So it will depend on what you did. I'm not going to go into each of one of them, but I highly recommend you pick a primary focus that was most relevant to the experience you had. And if you hover over this question mark here, choose the focus area that best describes the experience for you. So sometimes there are multiple focus areas, but if you had a situation where multiple focus areas can fit the experience, pick the one that is most relevant. And the same for characteristics. Choose the most important characteristic that you demonstrated or developed during this experience. And that's why, filling these is important because, as I said, you don't lose anything by filling that. And second, it can tell somebody who's reviewing your ERAS application very quickly what kind of thing you mainly developed during this experience. And if that appeals to them, it might have them read the rest of the description of your experience. So you have also multiple options here. And again, if more than one applies for your experience, pick the one that is most relevant. If you picked, for example, communication for the first experience, pick maybe critical thinking and problem solving for the second, if that applies. And here you can type the context / role / responsibility, which is very important for each experience. You have a maximum of 750 characters. Again, characters, not words. So be careful to stay within this character limit. And I usually recommend to fill the description in bullet point style. So I usually have applicants fill it on a Word document and then they put it in here. And the reason why I prefer the bullet point style is because it's easier to read. I think a paragraph is also fine, but it's always harder to find information in paragraphs. So if you have program directors reviewing hundreds of applications, sometimes thousands of applications, and each ERAS has up to 10 experiences, each experience has a huge box, it's gonna be very challenging for them to see what you want them to see. So sometimes they screen quickly the information and important things might get missed. So you dividing them into bullet points, usually the beginning, the first word of that bullet point is an action verb, and it can tell what kind of things you did. So that's why I highly recommend you do it in bullet point style, although I don't think it's wrong. It's totally fine if you do it paragraph. I just feel it makes it easier for people to read and find your accomplishment and what you did and what you learned. This is again the section that our editors spend most time on, because it's here what you tell program directors what you did and what you learned and why this experience was helpful. And always think, when you're mentioning these roles and responsibilities, you're trying to tell programs that you're going to be a good resident. You succeeded at this, and that means, there is some relevance in you becoming a good resident out of this experience. Because at the end of the day, program directors are looking for good residents who take good care of patients, who take care of each other, who, advance and become amazing doctors in the future. And that's why these are kind of indicatives of that. So if you had an experience where you demonstrated good communication, they might think, okay, you know what, this person showed really good communication skills in this experience. They might have the same, good communication skills when they start residency. So that is the whole point of all these experiences. So I'm trying to tell you that because you need to put forward the things that would demonstrate you as possibly a great resident. And that's where our physician advisors come in, because they know what good residents look like, what are the criteria for defining a good resident, what program directors are looking for, and they can help you pick these things that make you stand out and make your experience stand out. Because sometimes you have amazing things on your CV, but just the organization of it, or you pick the things that usually people would not focus on, and you did not mention the things that are very important and would make you stand out. So that's again what is the main value of having a physician advisor. In my opinion, the editing is not just language. Language is probably like 10-20%, but the rest is all this content advising, structural changes, and trying to bring out the experiences to have you ace your application. This was just an example. After you fill 1, 2, 3, up to 10 based on your situation, you have to pick the 3 most meaningful experiences. And you can see here now we have a box where we can pick the 3 most meaningful experiences. If you hover over this, it says identify up to 3 experiences that you found most meaningful. Why this is important? Because sometimes program directors don't have time to read the 10 experiences. So they want to read your top 3. And if maybe they like these top 3, they go and read the 10, or they just get impressed by these 3 and they invite you for an interview. So that's another important section that, our advisors help with and you should focus on. So if you click on this, it will bring up another box that you can fill to describe what made this experience most meaningful. And this is another section we find applicants make mistakes in, because they describe what they did, not what made this experience most meaningful. Although the AAMC clearly says this essay should not describe what you did in the experience or list a set of skills that you developed or demonstrated during the experience. So don't tell them what you did, because you already did that when you described the experience. So here they need to know why it was meaningful, how it influenced you. And here they tell you to weave in the focus area or the key characteristic you tagged. So for example, if you put critical thinking as the key characteristic, try to bring up how the critical thinking played a role in you picking this experience as most meaningful and how it influenced you. And again, we have detailed examples of how you should write, like a full written up example in our ERAS application template that you can download, along with a lot of other resources that you will find amazingly helpful for your ERAS application. And you can get the link to download these resources by going to the description below and signing up to the all-in-one application resources from the Match Guy. Now let's move on to the impactful experience. This is another section that was part of the supplemental ERAS, and then it got added to the main ERAS when the supplemental ERAS was removed. And I think this is a very important section. And it's important for program directors to understand the challenges that applicants went through, because not everyone's journey to medicine is the same. And I feel a lot of applicants, especially international graduates or US applicants from certain backgrounds or cultures, they go through additional challenges that it would be helpful to understand them and take them in consideration when picking applicants. So this section says, please describe any challenge or hardship that influenced your journey to residency. This could include experiences related to family background, financial background, community setting, educational experiences, and or general life experiences. How do I know if I should respond to this? So if you hover over here, you will see kind of examples of what do they mean by that. So for a family background, are you the first generation to graduate college? That's an example of that. But that's not the only option. So you might have a different reason why you would pick this under the family background, category. But again, you don't have to pick a category here. These are just kind of possibilities or examples, and they're giving you just, again, examples. So even if you didn't graduate as the first generation, but you have another reason to include it as a family background, you can still pick that. But again, it has to be a challenge or hardship. So if your father is a doctor and you said you picked this because of family background, that's not technically a hardship. That actually helps you. An example of a financial background would be low income, work to support family, work to pay for college, community settings, food scarcity, poverty, crime, lack of access to medical care, educational experiences, limited educational opportunities, limited access to advisors or mentors, other general life circumstances, loss of a family member, serving as a caregiver while working or in school. So all these are examples for you to kind of understand what do they mean by a challenge or hardship, but then you have to pick your own and describe that. And one thing to keep in mind, don't make up impactful experiences, because some students I know did not go through a challenge or hardship, and they try very hard to make up something and it doesn't look good. And they say here, programs don't expect all applicants to complete this section. This is intended for applicants who have overcome major challenges or obstacles. So if you didn't have a major challenge or obstacle, don't answer this question, because it's better than trying to say that something was a challenge but in reality it's not. And this is another section that our advisors really help with, to bring what a real impactful experience is and make you shape it in a way that makes your application stand out. And here you have 750 characters for this section. And this is another section that our advisors and editors help you with to try to bring your most meaningful / impactful experiences and bring it to life. Try to shape it in a way to show you as the person who overcame these challenges and how you became a more well-rounded person after going through these hardships. And I always recommend you have someone look at your application, someone that is more senior to you, not just a co-applicant, but someone who has been in the process, like a senior resident or maybe a mentor. And it doesn't have to be paid. If you have someone who is knowledgeable about the process and knows what they're doing and they can help you, go for it. But if you don't, I highly recommend you seek professional help, because although it's gonna cost you a few $100s, but you will realize, and this is a mistake I saw some applicants made when they went into the application process. They had good experiences, but they were not explained well. The CV was not well written, the personal statement was not well written, and they didn't match. And now they have to go through the whole process again. They have to pay thousands of dollars for applying to programs lose on the opportunity of an attending salary, because what a lot of students don't take in consideration, every year you're losing the match opportunity, you're losing around $200,000 to $500,000. Why? Because you're delaying your attending salary, which usually in the US is between $200 to $500. So you don't want to lose that opportunity because you didn't seek professional help. And again, if you have someone who is a mentor and willing to spend the time with you, because these take a lot of time to do. Don't think it's like a 5-10 minute thing. If you have someone who is really invested in you and willing to spend maybe an hour or two looking at your ERAS application, an hour or two looking at your personal statement, giving you real feedback to help you with your application, go for it. Because these people would be amazing. But if you don't have that, because not everyone have access to these amazing people, you need to seek professional help to make sure everything looks excellent. Now moving to the hobbies and interests, here you can list the different hobbies you have, and if you wanted to mention a short description of that, that's also fine. Some applicants don't fill that section. I highly recommend you fill this section, because sometimes this could be the beginning of the conversation. So let's say you put cooking and this person that you're interviewing loves cooking. This could be the icebreaker. This could be the first question they ask you. So I highly recommend you fill the hobbies of interest, but make sure you don't lie. Some people might mention things that are not true, which will show up. So make sure you be truthful about things you like. Don't make up hobbies. Put things that you're genuinely interested about and you'd be able to have a conversation on. Next, we have licenses and certifications. If you have any medical license in a state, you can add that here. A list of questions that is generally the answer is no for, but I highly recommend you read them and make sure that they don't apply to you. If you have any board certification, if you have any additional certification. So previously they had a question about the ACLS and the BLS under one of the top sections here, but now they included it under the other certifications in the licenses and certifications. So if you want to add that as yes, you can click on add entry, mention the certification name, date received, and the expiration date, valid until. So if you have ACLS, you can mention that here, and the date received and the valid until. DEA registration, that's for the opioid prescription number. If you have that, you can mention it, otherwise ignore. Now moving on to the publication section, which is the section I get most questions about. So let's start by looking at the different options available, and I'll explain each one as we go through them. So click on add entry, publication type, let's click on the drop down list, and let's start with peer-reviewed journal articles / abstracts. So peer-reviewed journal articles refer to articles that went through the peer-reviewed process and they got published, or abstracts that got published in journals. And I'll talk about that in a second. Here you put the article title. I'm going to show you an example so you understand more where to find each piece of information if you have that kind of publication. Let's have a look at this paper I published in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery. So this is the article title. So let's take this and I'll paste it in here. So that's the article title. The authors, you need to put the last name, space, first initial, middle initial, comma. And then you put the second author, third author, etc. So in my case, it would be Assad M. I don't have a middle name. I put comma. If I have a middle name, I would put the first initial of the middle name. And then I put comma, and then I put the second author. In this case, JCU is the second author. So I put U and JC, comma. And then you go the list of the authors. And here they give you an example of that. Publication name is the journal of your publication. So PubMed makes the journal name abbreviated. So you can either use this or use the full name, which is Plastic Reconstructive Surgery. I think it's fine to use it in the PubMed style. The article URL. So you can click here on the full text and get the link of the full article from the journal, but it's not a required category. But if you have the link, I highly recommend it in case people want to check it out. It would be easy for them to just click on the link. So we can fill that here. The PMID, you can find it here. PMID, but again, you don't have to include it. This is optional. Now the volume, issue number, and pages. This is another section that people confuse. Volume, issue number, and pages. Let's go to PubMed, and you can see here the date of the publication, which is October 2023, and then you see a list of numbers here. So I'll just copy them and I'll take them there and I'll explain each one. So if you put them here, so this 152 is the volume. The 4S is the issue number. So I'm gonna take it here, and here are the pages. So now we have the volume, issue number, and pages. If you go to the article from the journal itself, you can see here the volume, issue number, and pages. Then you need to put the month and year of publication. In our case, it was October 2023. And then you click save. Let's add another entry and go back to the peer-reviewed journal articles / abstracts, because I want to explain some minor thing about abstracts. When you submit your work to conferences, your work is supposed to be presented as oral or poster presentation. So that is a separate, drop down list. I'll show you here the poster / oral presentation, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But sometimes, not all conferences, they publish their abstracts in peer-reviewed journals. And this is usually rare. This is not the most common scenario, but for prestigious conferences, they publish their abstracts in a peer-reviewed journal. And in that case, you can still add your abstract here that got published in a journal separately from your presentation. So that's why you can have the NRMP number of like the mean number of abstracts / presentations / publications refer to all these together, because from one paper, you might get multiple abstracts that get published in journals and multiple presentations. So from one paper, you might have a number of 10 in that category, while in reality you had only one peer-reviewed journal. So you can still list the main article that got published in a journal separately from the abstract that got published separately from that paper as a result of you presenting in a conference. Because as I said, sometimes prestigious conferences publish their abstracts separately from the paper. That's totally separate from the full text article. Don't put the abstract of your paper and the main paper separately, although they're the same. Like here, for example, here you can't submit the abstract separately from the main paper. These are the same. But if the abstract got published separately as a result of you presenting that work in a conference, you can add it as another entry, although they're technically the same type of research. Now let's move on to peer-reviewed journal articles / abstracts other than published. So in this category, you have the following option here. Let's go to publication status so I can explain what that means. Submitted, which means even if you have a paper that you submitted but still not accepted or published, you can still add it on your ERAS application. And that's something that applicants don't know. Sometimes they think I can only put publications that got published or accepted, and the answer is no. You can still add on your ERAS application submitted work. Under review means it's under review because once you submit your paper to a journal, you have this initial phase that is not being assigned to a reviewer, and then it gets assigned to a reviewer, and then it goes to the peer review process, and then you go back and forth in comments and stuff, and it either gets accepted or rejected. So if it gets rejected, you can submit it to another journal. If it gets accepted, it goes to this category. So once it gets accepted, you can pick this accepted / impressed, but make sure you only pick that if it's fully accepted. So if they have major revisions or minor revisions, it's still not finally accepted, you can put under review. But if it's accepted, you can pick here. What's the difference between accepted and impressed? Impressed means that it's not fully published. So it has been accepted. Sometimes the journals publish online ahead of print, but they don't assign them an issue number and a volume number and pages. So the main difference between impress and published articles is the lack of issue, volume, and pages number, and it's not technically published in the journal. It's sometimes they publish it online ahead of print, and I'll show you an example of that. So if you look at this article here, Surgical Outcomes of Vertical Rectus Abdominis published in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, there is a date here, but you don't see these numbers I was showing you about. But you can still read the article, it's there. So that means this article got accepted, but it's not fully published, but the journal published it online ahead of print. And some journals publish most of their accepted papers ahead of print. Some of them don't publish any, some of them publish some. So the reason why there is this lag between the two is sometimes there is a specific number of papers that they need to publish in each issue, and they're waiting on that specific issue for that paper to get in. And sometimes they're doing some checks. So they're doing some grammar checks and some checks on the figures and the tables. So it's accepted, but it's not published yet. So it's in that window in between. And sometimes they let it online, but this is not the full final version of the paper that will get published. So a paper like this, if I want to be very accurate, I should not put it under the published. I should put it under other than published and put it here under the accepted impress. And you'll see here, they don't ask you about the issue number and the volume number. So although it's on PubMed, I can read the article on the journal website, it doesn't have an issue and volume number, and it's more accurate to put it under other than published, accepted / impress. And the same here, you can put the title of the paper, the journal name, the author list, the same style, and you can put the URL. And the date that it got accepted in our case, which is this date here, December 2023. If you pick submitted, put the date that you submitted that paper. One quick note about preprint is slightly different from these because sometimes authors put their papers as preprint on certain servers before it goes into the peer review process. So that's kind of different from the submitted under review accepted. Then you have peer reviewed book chapters. You can put the chapter title that you contributed to, the name of the book, the author list of that chapter you contributed to, because most of the time you're writing a chapter in a book, not the whole book, the editors of the book, the publisher of the book, the pages of the chapter you wrote or contributed to, if there is a link for that, the country in which the book got published in, and the year. Scientific monographs. Scientific monographs are generally a piece of work on a particular topic. However, these are not common among medical professionals, but if you have one, you can pick it and fill the related information. Now let's talk about poster and oral presentation. Let's pick one. And these are very common among applicants because usually you have research, you submit it to a conference, you go present it as oral or poster, and then you write the paper and you get it published in the paper, or you do these processes simultaneously. So even if the main paper out of your research work got published and you added it here on your ERAS application, you can still add the oral presentations and poster presentations that came out of this project to your ERAS application separately. Here you put the title of your poster presentation, the authors, which meeting or event you presented at, if there is a link for this meeting, country, city, presentation date, and poster URL, because sometimes that's available. For oral presentation, if we pick that, you'll see similar stuff: the title, the authors, the event / meeting, link, country, city, presentation date, and if you have a URL for your presentation. Another option is peer-reviewed online publication. An example of that would be if you published maybe something in UpToDate. That is an online publication and goes through peer review, and you can add the title of that here, authors. The URL is very important here because this is online publication. So you need to have the link so people can see it, and publication date. And please don't confuse the peer-reviewed online publication with journal articles that get published online. For example, I'm going to show you this paper here, and it's published in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, and you can see near the pages the letter E, which means that the full text article of this paper got published electronically. The E stands for electronic. So these pages are electronic. So even though this got published in an electronic version on the journal website, it still has a volume, issue number, and pages, even though the pages were electronic. Some journals are fully electronic. They don't have an imprint issue. So in that case, you still pick peer-reviewed journal articles if it's published in a journal. But something like UpToDate, it's not a journal, and in that case, you can pick peer-reviewed online publication. Non-peer-reviewed online publication, for example, if you wrote a blog and blog didn't go through a peer review process, you can do the same here. Pick non-peer-reviewed, fit the title, authors, URL, and publication date. And finally, other articles. If you have one type of article that did not fit any of the categories above, you can put that here: name, date, title, etc. And after the step 1 became pass-fail, I feel that there is more emphasis and relevance and importance of research in your application. And that's why I highly recommend for applicants going through the cycle, if they have nothing to do in the period between September and March when the match application is going, I highly recommend you do research in the US. It helps build connections for you, gives you good experience, understand the culture, and get some publications on your CV. And that's also why I did multiple courses summarizing my research experience of 1 year at the Mayo Clinic, 2 years at MD Anderson, doing multiple clinical research projects. I published now over 150 papers, and I want to summarize that experience to help future applicants not kind of reinvent the wheel or struggle trying to learn how to do practical aspects of research. So if you're interested in learning about research, make sure to check out the Match Guy website, go to courses, and we have multiple courses that can help you learn about research. The research course covers how to do clinical research from idea to publication. Systematic review talks about how to do systematic reviews. Statistics teaches you how to do statistical analysis on your own. And if you're looking to learn how to find research mentors, who is a good mentor for me, what kind of position I should be looking for, how should I approach that, email templates, CV templates, interview questions, all that is available in this How to Find Research Positions. And I can show you how you can find the curriculum of these courses to see if that's something you're interested in. You can scroll down and find the curriculum of what exactly is included in this course. So if you click here on lesson 1, you can see the exact topics that are covered in this course. And you can see now we have 14 lessons, and each one has multiple topics under them, multiple quizzes, exercises to actually teach you how to do research, not just theoretical lessons. And by the way, all these courses are 100% satisfaction guarantee, which means if you're not happy, we give you your money back. So go ahead, check them out. It's risk-free. You would learn a very good skill that will help you not only through your residency, but to understand studies, know what is a good study and what is a bad study for you later on to counsel your patients based on new research. And I'll leave the links for all these courses in the description below. And now we're reaching the end by the Certify and Submit. Be very careful when you certify and submit your ERAS application, because once you have certified, it will be locked and no changes will be permitted. So that's why once you submit your application to programs, you can't add new publications, you can't add new experiences or new things that you did. So that's why everything has to be ready before the end of September, which is usually the date you submit your ERAS application. The only section that stays open is the personal information, including your NRMP ID, that remains editable after certifying. So this is a checklist you can go through and make sure everything that needs to be filled is filled. One common question I get asked about that relates to ERAS submission is, when should I submit my ERAS? So this is the ERAS residency timeline from the AAMC. If you go on their website, you will find this table. And you can see here, September 25, residency programs may begin reviewing my ERAS applications and MSPEs at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, which means you should submit your application before September 25th, 2024, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And that's for March 2025, so that date will change a little bit, and the phrasing of this will stay the same in future matches. But what people get confused about is these two dates. Should I submit my application when it opens, so I can, my application becomes at the top, or should I submit it maybe September 24th or 23rd? According to the ERAS guidelines, they say that any time you submit before September 25th, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, these all will be stamped at the same time. So if you submit September 4th or 5th or September 20th or 23rd, they will all be shown as submitted at the same time. So I recommend you take your time, you keep looking at your CV, you add the new experiences, and submit it a few days before programs start reviewing your application. Don't wait until September 25th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, because you don't know what happens. You might lose internet connection, the website might crash down or something. So give it a few days, so maybe like September 3rd or September 2nd would be a good date. But any of these dates between September 4th and September 25th, 9 a.m. Eastern Time would be the same for the purpose of your application being at the top or not. They will all be stamped the same time. And one final thing I want to talk about is program signaling. Each specialty has a certain number of signals that I'll show you now, but I highly recommend you use the signals you have, because programs will definitely consider those who signal their programs more than those who do not. And if you have this opportunity, you should use it. Here are the number of signals per specialty. Each specialty has a different number of signals. So for example, internal medicine, you have 3 gold and 12 silver. Some ask, what is the difference between gold and silver? If you give a program a gold signal, that means you're valuing that program, or you're more interested in that program than a program that you give a silver signal to. And I'll leave the link for this page from the AAMC website about the different number of signals in the description of this video. So make sure to be smart about using these signals, because as you can see, there is very limited number of signals, only 15 out of over 600 internal medicine residency programs. So pick programs that you have a realistic shot at matching at. Look at their number of residents. If you're an IMG, maybe consider a program that has a decent number of IMGs, and of course it has to depend on your application. Some IMGs might match at the top programs, but they have like maybe 2 IMGs in that program. So you need to see your application and where you stand compared to the other applicants in that program. And that is definitely something you can discuss with your ERAS advisor if you sign up for our ERAS application editing, where they can talk about the different programs you picked and your application versus the program. But of course, we cannot give you a list of these programs because nobody has that list of the perfect list of programs that you should apply to. But it's a discussion based on your application and your understanding of the programs and your ties to the place and the program and your connections in there. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, if you would like to get access to the ERAS application template along with many personal statement samples, letters of recommendation, MSPEs, interview questions, guides, all these are part of the all-in-one application resources available from the Match Guy. And as I said in the beginning of this video, if you're interested in signing up to our ERAS application editing, we provide a physician advisor to help you with that. We provide language revision. We guide you through the program signaling, geographic preferences, and most importantly, the experiences. And if you'd like to bundle the ERAS application with our other services like personal statement, interview prep, check out the match application packages we have. We have silver, gold, platinum, and they differ by the number of edits. The silver mainly has 1 edit of personal statement, 1 edit of ERAS CV, 1 hour of interview prep. The gold has 2 edits of each document and 2 hours of IV prep and 1 hour of advising. The platinum has unlimited edits of your personal statement, unlimited edits of your ERAS CV, 6 hours of advising, 4 hours of interview prep, and unlimited access to your advisor via WhatsApp. And I'll leave the links for all these services in the description below. But if you have any questions about these services, you want to talk to one of our customer support team to learn about the different services we offer and which one is the best for your situation, go ahead and schedule a free consultation and they will guide you through the different offers we have. And I would like to end by saying, if you find any value in this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friend who's also applying to the match and might benefit from this video. I was in your shoes a few years ago and I know how stressful it is, but believe in yourself, work hard, and hopefully you will match. I wish you best of luck in your match, and now go ahead and check out my video on how to write a personal statement. Peace.